Okay, so today we're going to talk about the Crusades. This took place for nearly 300 years during the Middle Ages. Um, we're going to look at the causes of the Crusades themselves, and then the effects of those. So you see in the picture here that the European soldiers that are fighting for what they believe Christianity, they have the cross on their chest, and then they have the crosses on their shields. That's how you know which ones they are when we're talking about them. So what is a crusade? It's a holy war involving the journey of thousands of Europeans to reclaim Jerusalem in the name of Christianity. Jerusalem at that time was under the control of Muslims, people who practice Islam. And the reason why Jerusalem is kind of such a debated area is because Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, the three biggest religions in the world, all consider Jerusalem to be a holy city and a sacred site. So Christians believe it to be the sacred site because that's where Jesus was killed. Muslims believe it to be a sacred site because that's where they believe Muhammad ascended into heaven. And Jews believe it to be a sacred site because of the Wailing Wall, which is there. So all three religions are constantly fighting over this city because they want control of it. Technically, there are 9 crusades, although not everybody agrees that the 9th crusade is a crusade. I'll let you guys decide when we get to it. We're not going to study all 9. We're just going to study a couple at the beginning and then the one at the end. So the Crusades took place starting in 1093, but they last for nearly 300 years off and on. So they take quite a bit of time. We're talking about Jerusalem, which I'm circling over here with my arrow. Jerusalem, remember we started in Egypt, which is right here. Jerusalem is surrounded by areas that are completely controlled by Muslims. So the Fatimids in Egypt are Muslims, and the Turks over in this orange area here are Muslim, and Jerusalem's right there. So all these soldiers from Europe are coming from Cologne, from Germany, from Paris, from England. They're going to walk 3,000 miles all the way to Jerusalem to fight for this city there. So why was the Crusades, why did it happen? Kind of the causes of the crusade. The first was a social issue. The knights were causing a lot of trouble in Europe. They had nothing to do. They were pretty bored, which meant they started fighting each other, fighting for land, fighting for titles, stealing things from one another. They were causing a lot of havoc. So when they called for the Crusades, they said, hey, come fight for us. The knights had nothing else to do and were ready and willing to kind of go fight somebody new. And they believed that the land in Jerusalem, which was much wealthier, they believed that that land was going to be, they're going to take it over, they're going to steal all the riches, and they're going to become really wealthy and famous for participating in the Crusades. Also, in Europe, if you were the firstborn son, when your father passed away, you got all the property, all the money, and all the titles. Any younger brothers got absolutely nothing. So the younger brothers saw the crusade as a way for them to kind of go and make their riches and become famous on their own. We have political reasons for people fighting the Crusades. The Pope wanted to gain the territory of Jerusalem and gain more land for his empire. Also, we have spiritual reasons. The popes at that time promised the crusaders that if you go to the crusade and you die, then it's a free ticket into heaven. Now, obviously, that isn't what Christians believe, but that's what these crusaders are told. So they're willing to go die because they believe it erases all the other bad things they've done in their life. So this is Pope Urban. He's the one who starts the very first crusade. And he calls for a holy war and says, all of you that love God and love Jesus, you need to come with me and go to Jerusalem and take back this holy city. It's ours. We need to have it back. And a lot of people support this. They all sign up. Thousands and thousands of knights and nobles want to go fight for Jerusalem. It's a 3,000-mile journey, though, so it's a pretty long walk. Eventually, 12,000 knights and nobles approached Jerusalem and besiege it for a month. When we say besiege it, we mean that they surrounded the city, they kept all supplies and food from going into the city, and nobody could leave the city. Eventually, the Christians are able to capture the city on July 15th, and unfortunately, they slaughter thousands of Muslims, men, women, and children who are in Jerusalem. So again, that goes against the Christian ideal of thou shalt not kill if you're killing the people after you've taken the city. So this is going to be round one. First crusade goes to the Christians. The second crusade, the Muslim army is going to be under the command of Salah al-Din, and he's able to capture Jerusalem again. The reason he's able to capture it is because Jerusalem is surrounded by Muslim territory. So when the Christians won in the first crusade, it wasn't likely they were going to keep the city for very long when they're surrounded by thousands of miles of Muslims, making it impossible for them to get any new supplies or any new soldiers and to keep the city. So round two, second crusade, goes to the Muslims. And they're led by this guy here, Salah al-Din. And I put his actual photograph next to a picture of what Hollywood kind of portrays him as in this movie called Kingdom of Heaven. It's actually a pretty good representation of the Second Crusade, so it's not a exaggerated one if you're interested in watching that. Third Crusade involves the three most powerful kings in Europe. The first was Philip. Halfway there, he got tired of it, and he and his soldiers turned around and went home. German Emperor Frederick, he tried to cross a river with his men. He didn't know how to swim, and he drowned. So now Frederick is out. So the only one left is Richard the Lionhearted, and this is the character that it's based on in Robin Hood. If you've ever seen any of the movies or Disney movie, this is the character they base it on that is fighting against the Muslims. So he's going to fight Salah al-Din and his forces. The two of them actually respect each other a lot, and so they decide to call a truce. And they come to an agreement and they say, okay, Jerusalem's going to be under Muslim control, but any Christians who are unarmed can come into the city anytime they want and visit the holy places. So it seems like a pretty good compromise between the two groups, and that should have stopped it kind of there. But once Salah al-Din and Richard die, then that truce is no longer held in place. So the Fourth Crusade and then the Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth are the Christians trying to recapture Jerusalem, and they failed to do so. So it's not very successful for the Christians. The last crusade, the one most people feel is not technically a crusade, is called the Children's Crusade. And I'm going to switch my slide here. So in the Children's Crusade, we have Nicholas, who's the new king in Germany, and he announces that God inspired him to lead children into the crusade to fight the Muslims. So thousands of young people march to Italy. The Pope tells them, he sees them and says, you're a bunch of kids, you can't fight in a war, go home. Unfortunately, that message does not get to the 20,000 children who are marching in France towards the Holy Land. And they find two ship owners who agree to take them to the Holy Land. Unfortunately, those ship owners were not being honest. They took them on 7 ships. 2 of them sank in a storm, and the other 5 were taken to Africa, where the children were sold into slavery. So you could say that this isn't a crusade because there wasn't actual fighting, but the children signed up to go fight just the same as the knights did. They just didn't actually end up getting to the Holy Land. So what is the effect of this fighting for nearly 300 years? We've got quite a bit of effect. In the beginning, it was really about the church's power, getting all these people to go fight for their cause. They also are going to expand trade because Europeans traveling 3,000 miles on foot, they're going to have to do a lot of trade back and forth. This is going to be thousands of knights and nobles that are going to lose their lives, which is going to change Europe significantly. Those who do survive are going to bring the culture of the Middle East back to Europe. So they're bringing spices, they're bringing food, they're bringing different ideas and inventions from the Middle East back to Europe. But both groups, the Christians and the Muslims, realized that they had a common enemy, which was the Jews. So we're going to see an increase in the persecution of Jews, with thousands of them slaughtered by both Muslims and Christians. So as they start to fail and fail and fail and fail, the Europeans, the church is going to start to lose some power, because people are like, if we're on the side of God, why aren't we winning these battles? And that's going to make them lose power. The Crusades are also going to weaken that entire structure I taught you guys about feudalism. If you remember, feudalism was the idea of the king at the top, then the nobles, the knights, and the peasants. Because most of the nobles and the knights went to the Crusades and fought or died there, the peasants are going to start to have more and more land because there's nobody else coming back from the Crusades. So therefore, they're going to start to get more and more land that they have possession of. And last but not least, it definitely is going to begin a long legacy of bitterness and hatred between Christians and Muslims that's going to land all the way up into modern times. We still feel the effects of this. The Crusades were a violation of the commandment for Christians of thou shalt not kill. It was an example of an abuse of church power where the popes are using people's faith in order to gain land and money. And so it's a pretty bad time period from the Middle Ages with so many people dying during the Crusades.